and welcome back to the Co-Treat. I'm Jonathan, your occupational therapy person for today.
And I'm Magnolia, your speech therapy professional today.
We're here again. Okay, so last session was super fun because my mom was here.
It was great.
Loved it. I've been listening back to it. Is it bad that I haven't finished it? This is the only one that I haven't finished, like, within the time span of us, like, recording it, releasing it, and then recording a new one.
Yeah. I haven't finished it either. I've tried listening to it, but my child has been in the car every time, and now she hears my voice, and she's like, Mama. So I can't hear it, so it's fair. It's not happening right now.
I've been on a, like, major Celine Dion kick recently. I don't know why. So anytime I'm in my car, instead of listening to podcasts, I've been, like, screaming Celine Dion songs.
That's me, but Broadway. So, I mean, it's like the same thing, practically.
I love it. I was telling my mom, I was like, okay, so I know that everybody knows about Celine Dion, but, like, do people know about Celine Dion? Because she's legitimately incredible. And I don't know if she gets enough credit, even though she, like, everybody knows who she is. And she's had this, like, crazy, like, residency in Vegas for, I don't know, like 20 years. I think she had it.
She had a song on Deadpool.
Yeah.
Sang with Deadpool.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Love. By the way, that new movie's coming out, I think. Wait.
Yeah, it's out.
It comes out. Oh, yeah. So the day that we're recording this,
that's crazy.
It's out.
Sorry, that's just like a little glimpse into, I guess, what we like.
Yeah, I gotta go. I want to go watch it.
Yeah.
I've been literally the past 2 days, I've seen so much press between, like, Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds.
Trust me, I'm going to go see
Love.
One of the best Broadway stars on TV.
Love.
Thank you, Hugh Jackman.
Thank you, Hugh Jackman.
He was a Broadway star before becoming Wolverine, and I just need to make that known over and over and over again.
He's great.
People need to know that.
He's so talented. Okay, so, like, not back to podcast life.
Back to the Co-Treat.
So, like, last session, whatever, I don't even know what day it is. When Mom was on, we kind of decided we were going to do, like, some student-themed, school life-themed thing, I guess.
Yeah, everyone's in, like, the back-to-school zone right now.
Yeah.
I'm struggling. I want to buy all, like, the school supplies. Like, you know, like when you went to go, like, back to school shopping. Yeah.
Just to have it in your house.
I would love it. No, I used to love back to school shopping.
Magnolia is a secret secretary. Like, that is her dream.
Like, I went to Staples the other day and I almost died. Like, I wanted everything. Everything.
Interesting.
Anyway.
I'm going to, like, show up, or I'm just going to pass you in Walmart one day in, like, the ink section, like the printer ink section, and you're just over here, like, with your spreadsheet. And,
like, there's other girls, you know, like, who could, like, spend, like, 3 hours in Ulta, and I'm like, put me in a Staples.
Getting all the things.
Anyway.
Get a highlighter. We need a fine tip, and we need a thick boy.
Absolutely.
We need the little, like, whiteout that's the strips and
there's
the liquid.
So many reasons. I love all the new school supplies that come out during this time.
Yeah.
I was student life is for me.
Yeah.
I miss it.
I feel that for you. I totally feel that for you. So what we decided to do, because everybody is kind of in this back to school mode, we're kind of theming these next few sessions around school. So we started with pre-K. Feel like that's pretty fitting.
Yeah.
Where you start school. And today we're going completely different.
A huge jump.
Yeah, huge jump. We're going from pre-K to our college experiences. So we forgot about everything in between.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, we're just kind of doing kind of what's accessible to us. And we are accessible.
Yeah.
So
we've had these experiences.
Yeah, that's what we're going to chat about. Hopefully we'll have another special guest on soon.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm excited about that, but I'm not going to say anything extra.
Yeah.
Just tune in. We have another special guest coming, hopefully. And that'll be fun.
It will be
a completely different experience and, like, perspective, which will be really cool.
We hope to keep bringing, like, other perspectives on.
Yeah.
On here.
Other professionals.
But we've been wanting to talk about, like, student life for a while.
Yeah. Specifically what it was like for us to be students in our programs. Because between the two of us, we have a lot of experience being students.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not including, I don't know, let me think. 13 years of, like, regular school, then after high school.
Yeah, I did 6 years post high school.
And
you've had, like, a huge...
Mine's weird.
We have to do math for a moment.
I know. I've been in and out of I've been out of high school for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I think on and off been in school had some other life experiences that kind of stepped in the way of being in school for a while.
That's totally okay.
But like on and off was in school for, I don't know, 7 of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I feel like that's possible.
I don't have enough degrees to like show for it. But yeah, just kind of on and off.
Everyone has their own journey.
That's right. Everybody does. And mine is uniquely mine.
Yes.
And it's great. No regrets, as they say. I don't know.
Do they say that still?
I don't know.
I don't think the youth would know what that is.
What is it? Gen Z? What's the new one? Gen Alpha? Is that what it is?
I don't know.
The newest one?
They would say something really weird, like, I don't know. I can't even make myself say it.
No.
I've tried to learn some of the lingo. It's too hard.
We're old people these days. I'm too young to be old.
Yeah.
Anyway. But so we have a lot of experience at school. And so we wanted specifically, because this is our therapy themed podcast, to talk about our experience in our therapy schools.
Right.
Kind of going through, because Magnolia, like she said, she's had 6 years of post high school. And a lot of that, maybe it wasn't all directly related to speech, but definitely a lot was.
4 of it, like at least strictly was.
Yeah.
With a little bit in the first 2 years.
Yeah.
As well. So.
And then, like, my programs, I have been through an occupational therapy assistant program. Mm-hmm. And now I'm, again, a student in an occupational therapy graduate program.
Yeah.
So, a lot of things. A lot of school.
Mm-hmm. So, before we, bore you with all of that, we're going to talk about our expectations of what we thought.
We are not going to bore anybody because we're fun.
Yeah. So when we were super young and ready to
and
go into our programs, and we were super excited, think about our expectations.
So do you want to go first or want me to go first?
I can go first. That's
okay. Fine. What were your expectations going into school?
I'm trying to think. Into the program. I'm going to keep specifying that, because going into school was another hot mess that we'll talk about.
Sure.
Maybe one day. We may get into that one day. But when I did choose to go into the communication sciences disorders program, my kind of expectations for that, of course, I knew I'd have to take tons of classes, which we can bore them with the logistics of that as well another day.
Nope. Boredom. This is the bore-free zone.
Okay, if you love logistics like me, check us out the next time we talk about this. But as far as doing clinicals, things like that, I was really expecting that we would have lots of opportunities for observation, because at that point, I didn't really know a lot. I kind of shadowed some, but I really wanted observation, a lot of hours of observation. I would have loved. I was thinking maybe I need to get 100, 200 observation hours. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I want to be observing all the time.
Yeah.
I also kind of thought that I'd be in the clinic a lot. At least where I was at school, they had an on-campus clinic. So I kind of assumed we would be pretty much in the clinic whenever we had a free time to learn, do whatever. Other expectations were that I would start doing some therapy or start practicing therapy a little bit. Yeah. To kind of start learning it myself. I'm definitely one who wants to try things out and do it hands-on versus just watching.
Yeah.
So it's kind of my expectation that I would have the opportunity to begin doing therapy with a close eye, of course.
Sure.
In undergrad. And then when I went to grad school, my expectation was pretty much that I'd be kind of given a caseload for me to practice with while I had supervisors very close by. And that I would also go to different practicum experiences. So internship experiences to different sites. And I would see adults, little kids, things like that. And I would also have my own caseload as well. So just kind of, I would have a lot of experiences, what I was kind of expecting.
Sure.
But more hands-on that I kind of led.
Yeah.
So, and I would get graded on that experience.
Yeah.
That's kind of my expectation of it.
Yeah. I think when I was going into my OTA program, honestly, I don't really. Part of me like doesn't remember what I expected to go. You know, like because it's been a while ago, and I feel like I've blocked some things out. But I know that I definitely whatever I thought OT was not correct. And so,
that's
like,
fair.
For instance, I remember like going into the field, like when I was thinking about, and my mom was kind of, because mom was the driving force for me to enter the world of OT. She thought that would be a good fit for me. Which, thank you, Mom, because she was correct, and I very much love it. But I definitely expected that it would be a lot of. I was on the train of OT is all about like the kind of ADL component. I would learn a lot about helping people with different abilities kind of get their clothes on and take showers and feed themselves and those kinds of things. And that there was a major fine motor component. Like that was kind of the crux of OT. Like that was what it was all about. And that OT, I mean, you literally used to describe before I was in the world of OT, I would describe occupational therapy as people would be like, is that like physical therapy? And I was like, well, it is a physical therapy.
Yeah.
But we're more focused on like the upper body and the upper extremity and stuff. I wouldn't say upper extremity. That's a term I learned in school. But I would like, more about the upper body. And that's kind of what my expectation of what OT was before entering the program. And then also, I guess from like what I expected to gain from, or what I expected the experience to be like, was this, I guess I expected and hoped that it would be an environment of, collaboration and a lot of, it's people who are trying to help people, going to school to help people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so it's going to be this like positive experience, this positive environment with a lot of like really help focused people. And then what else? I'm trying to think as far as like curriculum goes and stuff. I knew that there was going to be some hands-on learning because I knew that the program ended with what we call field work. And so there is this portion of time that you have to go and be in class doing a lot of book work and like taking tests and doing a lot of studying and kind of didactic learning is the fancy term for it, but a lot of like academic schoolwork. And then there would be a separate time for like hands-on learning, and that was terrifying. Because I didn't have a clue what to expect.
So you were terrified about the hands-on part.
At
the beginning.
Scared, yes, at the beginning. Scared of the fact that it's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to actually like do something, and like I'm in charge of people's care.
Yeah,
like I
think it's so funny how like everyone has like a different experience. To it, because I was like, let me out, like let's go. I was like so ready. I was like, I'm done with classes. Let's do this.
Yeah.
But it's also just the different programs too. Like for example, like you sought out your OT program because it was like an independent program, right?
I don't know what you mean.
Like you sought out the fact that you were going to the OT program and it was like laid out for you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
Yes.
It wasn't like a major with like varying things you can do with your
no. Because my major, like, my OTA program, it was a associate level program, so it's a 2-year. It's a 2-year degree, but like you go into it knowing that I'm going into the OTA program.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of trying to say. Yeah. Whereas like from my experience, well, one, I knew a lot about speech therapy already because my mom is a speech therapist.
Fair.
So
yeah.
Sorry, I've always been exposed. I don't know if we have or not.
About how your mom's in it? No,
I don't remember. I don't remember, but I've always been exposed to it.
Yeah.
And for me, it was also weird because I changed majors. So like, I was already in school.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going into it with this like, oh, what's this new expectation? Like, I was in school changing majors to it with full preparedness to be like, let's dig in.
Yeah.
I'm ready to like focus on my career now.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So like my mentality was like, I'm kind of done with just this basic school stuff. Like, let's get to my career.
Sure.
With the knowledge and knowing what my mom already did in other places I have observed on my own.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I take in like my intro class, like intro to communication disorders and sciences. I took that like independently from being in the program to kind of like test the waters. So I kind of had a lot of understanding of what was expected.
Sure.
Pretty fast.
Yeah.
I guess. So I was exposure to it. Yeah, exposure. Like I was going into it really expecting like the big caseload, like lots of hours, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't have a clue. Like, I didn't know. I really was kind of a whole thing of, this is what I want to do. Like, from what I know about this field, sounds great. And like, this is what I want to do. So this is the path that I have chosen.
Yeah.
To take. And so we're just going to do it. And like, really just kind of open to the experience, but also pretty scared.
Yeah.
And hopeful that it was going to be a very like positive experience because presumably the people that would be going into this kind of a field would be people who were positive people,
right?
Who were, you know, like wanting to be forces for like the benefit of others.
Yeah. What was like the expectation for like how like your therapy experiences would be like as a student?
For me I really didn't know. Like I knew I had to do observation hours before getting into the program.
Okay.
Like it's a requirement for the program. You have to have so many observation hours. And so I expected that I knew that there was some level of field work, you know, like I said, where you go out and you are supervised. You are a student, but you are providing intervention under the direct supervision of, well, it's supposed to be the direct supervision. That's not always what happens. That's a whole different conversation. That's my own little soapbox that I will jump on one day.
Sounds good.
But under the direct supervision of, you know, working person, clinician. And so I knew that was going to happen. But I really didn't know what it was going to look like. Like, because I had no exposure.
Right.
You know, like my exposure to OT was my mom saying, "Hey, Jonathan, I think you'd like this." And
thank goodness she did.
I know. And I had done a little bit of observation before, like while I was in high school, I did a little bit of observation. And that seemed great.
Right.
But, you know,
okay.
Really, I guess all that to say, I don't really know what I expected.
That's fair.
You know?
That's an expectation within itself, I guess.
I guess. Having no expectations is an expectation.
Into the unknown, as they say.
I just about to start singing. Frozen 2 soundtrack,
you
people.
You can tell I have a 2-year-old. Like, it's just in my brain.
What's my excuse? I'm just a grown man.
I'm holding it in. Anyway.
Listen, Frozen 2 rocked my world. It was amazing. I love that movie.
Okay, back to the Go-Treat. They're learning so much about us.
I am a Disney adult.
Yeah.
Like, hardcore.
He really is.
I almost said it was a problem. It's not. I feel very at peace.
I mean, our generation is very strong into Disney anyway. Like, we grew up with it.
Born in Disney Renaissance. Okay.
So, they're still making Disney movies for us.
Literally.
Literally.
Hello. Incredibles 2, that was not for the kids.
No.
That was for me. That was for me. Okay.
Okay. So anyway, back to
so then what was it?
Again.
Yeah. So then what was it actually like once you got into school? What do you like? What are some of the big things that you remember of like, oh, this is what it means to be a student here?
I would love to. I'm going to split my experience up a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to like focus on undergrad experience.
Sure.
You give us yours, and then I'll kind of come back to like wrap it around to masters because like they're very, very different in every single way. Okay. So for undergrad, the big thing that I didn't know was going to happen was that communication science disorders, at least where I'm at, or maybe in Alabama, I don't know if it's like that, every state, is really just the undergrad degree that can lead you to 2 different options. So you can choose audiology or speech pathology out of those 2 options. So that's not what I was expecting going in to that, because clearly my brain was like, I'm doing this to become a speech therapist.
Yeah.
So that added on a whole new like level of course load, which I didn't know we would be taking as far as like my expectation of it. Of course, once I read into the program, I knew that. But that also added like additional observations and clinical experiences that needed to be done on top of like speech stuff. And looking back at it, like from my experience, the audiology practical, like clinical hours I did in the audiology side of things were way more hands-on. Like they were super hands-on. Like I helped like change batteries. Like we did hearing screenings on each other. And that's one thing I did like about it. And maybe it was just because it was like super accessible and easy. They just kind of like had the clinic open and like you kind of were just like challenged, kind of was just like get 10 of your friends in here and screen their hearing or and get us to sign off on it, or bring 10 friends into the booth and use the audiometer and the otoscope and all these things. So we had access to the equipment. So that was really cool to get to like play with that equipment and learn how to do those things. And it, like I said, it was very super hands-on. It was also very protocoled. Like they literally had a step-by-step procedure they wanted us to do, like on top of like how we explain things to the patient before putting headphones on them, every little thing, to the point of like you got graded on those experiences. Like we were partnered up to like do each other's hearing, and the professor would be in there watching every step you did for that evaluation process to see how you did it. So that was kind of something way out of left field that I was not prepared for, but it was also super exciting and super fun. I kind of just saw that as like a little extra fun side of things that we got to do and learn about. Even though I wasn't going into audiology, it's important to know where we would send our patients in the future for hearing. And we do hearing screening. So it was important for us to learn how to do hearing screenings. As far as like the speech side of things, I definitely didn't get as much experience as I was hoping for or wanting. I kind of feel like bare minimum was required. And so if you wanted to do more, you had to like seek out those opportunities. And so I definitely have that personality of like, where's more? Like, what more can I do? I'm not really satisfied with bare minimum pretty much in anything I do. And so I was just kind of like, okay, I need more experiences than this. So the bare minimum was we needed 25 observation hours. That is it.
So you got 2,500.
I don't know how many I got. But like 25 observation hours, I feel like that is so little for a undergrad bachelor's program in my brain. Specifically since it's just observation. So you literally just have to watch.
It's not even a full week
the session.
Work.
But there are a lot of laws in place and things like that with billing and stuff, where speech students could not do the therapy itself for like whatever reason.
Undergrad speech
people. Undergrad speech people. So we could be in the sessions and be like a helping hand we would do that to the grad students. So like the grad student would be in charge of treating the patient and we would be there kind of like the aide. So what happened in my experience is we were paired one-on-one with a grad student, which was kind of fun. You kind of get like hand selected for that experience. So like you really had to like be really involved in the clinic and be really willing to do things. For example, like we had like cleaning duties in the clinic. You could be in the clinic to like help. You could be in the clinic to study. You could be in the clinic to like make yourself familiar with tests, with toys. Like the clinic was open. So like if you made yourself visible in the clinic, you got more likely to be chosen to kind of be part of these things on top of just like your basic 25 hours. So I really made my presence known. I was there all the time if possible. So I had 2 different grad students I was connected with, and then I would help them treat their patients. Just the ones that fit my case, like my school schedule. So I'd have like 2 or 3 patients I would help with, and that was it. Everyone else would have their patient as well. So you would have like 1 to 3 patients you might be paired with for that semester. If you ever were not there, you had to get like a substitute which was really kind of a weird thing for us. Okay. Or it would like count against you. And so it was weird, but I loved it because anytime anyone couldn't be there, I took up all the opportunities. Like, let me be your substitute. Because then I wanted to see more than just like my patient. Like, because I wasn't getting a good view, in my opinion, of all of speech therapy when I was just with this one patient. For the semester. But I did find that really fun, like getting to be involved. And I was really lucky to have some really good grad students who like let me be involved and like explain the process to me. We had to like keep our own data during the sessions, just like practice keeping data, which I remember as a student clinician being like, data is life. So like I was over there like writing everything down. Also remember outlines were very important. So like I would write an outline for the session, be fully prepared of like, okay, during this first 10 minutes, we're going to target goal 1. Like the next 10 minutes going to target goal 2. And then we had these little worksheets, like flow sheets we had that we had to do during the therapy. So that was all it was a little bit more clinical than I expected. I kind of thought it would be like go in, do therapy, learn these experiences. But instead it was kind of like, keep data, keep a flow sheet of what happened, follow this step by step, kind of like procedure and protocol, which makes sense because we were in a learning process. So I do get they want us to learn the procedure and all of that. But then I feel like I also, as a student, definitely got utilized for a lot of the aid type work, like, hey, you go put up the toys, hey, go get me more toys, that type of stuff, as well, which is totally fine. But I was definitely still in the mindset of like, I'm ready to do more with patients. Like, but I also understand that not everyone is at the same level of readiness, so they do have to keep it as safe for the kids as possible. Keep it all at a good like learning experience for everyone who has different experiences. But that's just kind of like where my headspace was at during that time, if that makes sense. I don't know if it does. I'm trying to
ready for more.
Yeah.
Hungry for growth.
I was so ready. Like all I was thinking about during that time was like, okay, grad school, like let's go. Like ready for more of this. Like I've met that 25. I've done way over the 25. Let's keep on going. Another thing that I did not expect, and this is probably because I did not take a tour of the clinic prior to doing clinical hours, is two-way or one-way mirrors. Was not ready for that experience.
Weird.
So
watching you on the other side of the glass.
Every treatment room was very small. Like I'm gonna say like maybe a 4x6 room with a little table and
that's teeny.
Like 3 chairs in there. And so we would take a tote of your toys, whatever toys you want to do that day, into the room. Like that was how it worked for every session. And on the other side of the window was the supervisor and the parents if they wanted to be in there. So they were on the other side of the window as well. If the parents weren't in there, it was just the supervisor taking notes, which the supervisor would be one of our professors, a clinical professor. So I found that really intimidating because I didn't expect that.
That sounds very scary.
And then on top of that, it was all recorded with a camera on the top of the room.
Oh, weird.
So even more.
It's like a playback, like a sports playback.
Absolutely. So it added to the stress level. So I definitely had to go into it feeling super confident, super prepared, like kind of some fake confidence because, I mean, we're being watched and recorded. And I'm sure the grad student was also very stressed in that moment. Like I was stressed for her. I was stressed for me. I'm like, we got to get this perfect. We got to get this right. So I will say like my mentality was like sessions have to be perfect. It's kind of one of the things I kind of got a fake expectation for. And to the point of like during my clinical class, some of the videos got played to the other classmates.
Ooh.
So like they would pull videos of like what they liked and didn't like, literally like game film for those who played sports.
That is wild.
And we would like watch what it was like. And it was intense.
That's terrifying. I can imagine that's terrifying from a student's perspective. From like if it's your video that gets pulled, or just the fear that yours may get pulled. But also part of me like really as a clinician and as a current student, I'm like, I kind of love that too though. because like that real time, okay, this is what happened. Let's analyze it. And these are the things that we think were like, these were the things that were really great.
Yeah.
And these are the things that we need to fix. I do love that because there are times that I wish I could do that for my students that I have supervised, where it's like, I wish I could go back and show you exactly what happened and really commend you on these things that were really wonderful. And then give some suggestions for these things that could have been a little better.
I do agree with that.
But I know that
it was terrifying. It was so terrifying. But like you said, it was a great learning experience.
Yeah.
And you don't learn without hard conversations.
Right.
Like, you've got to have them.
Ooh, don't we know it?
I mean, it stinks, but like, I had a really good clinical professor who was in charge of our clinical class as well. So like, she would play those videos with the best intentions, and we would all track the data in the of the session if she really liked it, and then we would like group conversation of like, what did y'all get for that, or group conversation of like, how would we write a SOAP note for that session? Yeah. So like, that is a good learning experience, especially when not everyone had the exact same experience. Not everyone got to see all the patients.
Sure.
So it was a kind of a good compromise for that, where like, you're only with your one patient, so you may not get to see other experiences. So I really did appreciate that. I did have my video pulled a couple of times for good and bad things. So you learn.
Yeah, you learn.
But the good felt a lot better than the bad. And obviously it wasn't like bad. It was just like,
these are things we can work on.
What could we do here instead? Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, to me, that's kind of like the big things that stood out. So like, the things I didn't expect were to do audiology things, to have to kind of like do a lot of extra effort in order to get patients. I didn't expect the bare minimum for hours, and I definitely did not expect a one-way mirror and video of therapy sessions. But I learned a lot through those experiences.
That is sounds like a whole lot of different, like, I don't know, I'm a little intimidated.
But not all programs are the same, and we can talk about that another day.
A different day.
So talk about us about like how your expectations were different
in the
what
OTA
happened.
program. Well, like I said, I didn't really have a full breadth of like what OT was. I had a very limited view it was a very, very narrow view of what OT was going into the program. And so I remember every day that we would go and we would learn, we'd focus on a different topic. My mind was constantly blown. Like, I was continuously just kind of marveled by the field of OT, because I was just like, oh my gosh, I had never thought about that. But that totally makes sense. I'd never considered that that's something that people have challenges with, but that totally makes sense. Like, I remember truly, it's like every time I went to campus, because our program, we would go to campus 3 days a week. And every day that we would get there, I would learn something new, or there would be some new little tidbit of knowledge, or a different population, or a different diagnosis that I'd never heard of, or a different technique, or a different whatever. And I was just continually just blown away by, oh my gosh, this is so amazing that OT does all of this stuff. So I remember, excuse me, just like choked on nothing. But I remember kind of constantly being amazed by the privilege that it was for me to be in school to do this kind of work, because it was just so exciting to me. I was always very excited about the field of OT. And it's so much more than ADLs and fine motor.
Right.
So much. Those, honestly, Jonathan's personal opinion, those are probably the most boring parts. I said it. I don't know if they're the most boring, but they're like not the most exciting. I'll say that. They're not the most exciting for me.
Nothing's boring, Jonathan.
Nothing is boring. Nothing is boring. None of it is boring. I agree. None of it is boring. It is all amazing.
He just has things he likes more.
I do. There are other things that excite me way more than those things that I thought were going to be my whole career.
Right.
Which is really cool. And another thing that I totally did not expect going into the program was totally out of left field. I didn't expect the gender disparity in the field. That was completely unexpected to me, because in my program, I was a part of a gigantic program. I have come to learn there were 60 students in my cohort, which
Wow.
I have never met another OTA, and I've met a lot of OTAs. I've never met another one that has had anywhere close to that many in their programs.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a ton of students of mine, and there were four men.
Wow.
Out of 60. It's a tiny portion of us, which we've talked about on the podcast about there is just disparity, and I just didn't expect it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that it's a female-dominated field, which we have discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't bother me at all. I just did not know that was...
You didn't know that part of the world.
Yeah, had no clue. So that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of big difference. Some other things that were... Oh, I'm not going to... Maybe I don't want to... Something popped in my head, but I was like, I can't say that on a podcast. That'd be the nicest thing to say.
I'm concerned.
But well, this is what I'll say. I'll just say it. I was not expecting. There were some members of my class, because it is a 2-year degree. Mm-hmm. There were some people who definitely took advantage of the fact that it was a 2-year degree, and you come out getting paid pretty good. Mm-hmm. You come out with a pretty reasonable income from a 2-year degree. And I wasn't expecting that. I expected everybody there to be like super passionate, very like excited about the field.
I get what you're saying.
And that just wasn't the case. Some people were very much like, I'm getting a degree to do a job to support my family.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
You know?
I kind of saw that some in undergrad too. Like it was a stepping stone to whatever else they wanted in life. Yeah. So it happens. Yeah. Not everyone can be as passionate.
It's true. Not everybody can. And I just wasn't expecting that. It's fine. It's not always a problem. Sometimes it is a problem. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want, like, you need to leave. Like, get out of the field. Go do something else. If you're not interested in helping people, go do other things. Mm-hmm. But for some people, like, totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. It's great. And it is a great option if you do have an interest in caring for other people. And you just don't have the ability or the access to something, to a higher degree, right? To a more advanced degree because of time or because of money or because of geographic location or whatever the reason, then it is a good option. But I just wasn't expecting there to be some people who were kind of just apathetic about people. Right. And that was unfortunate. Right. It made me sad.
I think people on our podcast, like, they know what we mean. Like, I
hope so. I hope so.
We very clearly, like, we are passionate about our fields. And so we hope that others who are working in our fields feel like the need to care for others. So
yeah, I feel like it's a requirement. Yeah. If you're in a helping field, you need to actually care about helping people. Yeah. I feel like that's not too controversial a statement.
No. Okay.
But so that was some other things I didn't expect. As far as like the program itself went, well, and I was when I was going through my OTA program, I wasn't working. I had worked for 3 years, literally 3 years, and had saved and saved and saved and saved and saved so that I could quit because I had been told that it was a very intense program. So I had worked for 3 years to like save as much money as I possibly could so that I could sustain myself to quit work and just do school. Yeah. And so as far as like the mental load of it all, I was breezing. Like I was fine. Like I wasn't super stressed about stuff most of the time. I felt pretty good because I had the freedom and the time to dedicate.
A really smart plan.
It worked out really well, and I really am glad that I did that. Mm-hmm. But I know that some of my other classmates were not in the same boat, and some of them were parents and they were married and they had homes and they had mortgages and, you know, they had all these other things going on. And so they were like stressed. They were stressed to the max because they just had life going on. Right. That was not my experience just because I did not have to work. Yeah. Because I had saved all of this money to live on while I was in school. But I know that was a concern for a lot of people. Yeah. Because
you don't really expect how much, not everyone expects how much these programs take out of you, or like how much they require.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
For like, you're paying to do this.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid for it, but like,
yeah,
you're paying for these experiences.
For sure. And as an adult person, that period of time for a lot of people when you're like, oh, I'm spending all my time doing this other thing that I'm paying for, and I'm not spending my time doing things to make money, that's hard. When you're like a grown-up adult who has grown-up adult bills, and you're like, that just adds an extra layer of stress.
It does.
To the situation.
I was pretty lucky as well. I did work while in the program, but I worked, like, I was working a on-campus student job. So, like, the max I could work was 20 hours a week. Like, that was, like, a university rule.
Yeah.
If you were taking classes, you can only work 20 hours a week, which is, thank goodness they're saving our sanity there.
I love that.
But I did get married while in undergrad. So once we were married, it was kind of like, okay, I have to have enough money to, like, sustain our life while we're in school. So I took another on-campus job to kind of help with that. So I was kind of working 2 on-campus jobs. Somehow I ended up working more hours than possible. But also got really lucky again because the second on-campus job I got was in the clinic with a professor doing his research. That's cool. I got really lucky because then I was feeling like, oh, I got the experience. Oh, I'm already in the clinic. So I was meeting a lot of the expectations I had in my head of like, you're making yourself known. You're in the clinic. You can clean the clinic while you're here. Like, does that make sense? And so, but I also got to do like my job. So that was kind of fun.
And it's really cool.
I'm just on a little side note. Sorry. Yeah. You reminded me of that.
I think it's great. Yeah.
What about your like clinical expectations? How was that different? Or I know you didn't really have a lot.
I didn't have a lot. I didn't know what going into clinicals, what we call field work, what our field work, I didn't really know what to expect. But what wound up happening, I mean, I was very scared. And as a student going through clinicals, I was very scared. Like, it was always kind of, because like you mentioned, you as a student, you always just want to get it right. You're just so focused on doing things correctly and making a good impression and you don't want to mess up. And I was always nervous about like hurting somebody because especially when I was doing like my rotation in the hospital, if I mess up, someone could get hurt. And like, that's, like if I drop somebody, if we're doing transfers and I drop somebody, or if I accidentally pull on a wire that's hooked up to something, or pull out a tube, or, so especially in the hospital, it was very scary. I was terrified as a student. As a clinician, yes, it's nerve-wracking. It can be when you're not super comfortable with it. But excuse me. But like now, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I've got the skills to deal with it. But as a student, when you just don't know,
right?
And especially if it's your first time being in those settings, like I love that you had experiences as we don't have as many observation experiences built into the schooling, but ours is also super short. It's a 2-year program, It's a 1-year ours is a 1-year program once you get in it, but it's a 2-year degree. And ours is really fast in comparison to some other ones across the nation.
And y'all are ending your program ready to go be therapists.
Right. So we have to be like on the ground running.
Right.
Like, you're going.
Where, like with my program, I was ending it ready to go into master's degree.
Yeah.
Or you can become an SLPA.
Right.
To work with kids only.
Right. And so like, it was really, there was a lot of things that were it felt very high pressure, high stakes, at different times. And sometimes it was like, we had some like emergencies in the hospital. The hospital was much scarier than the pediatric clinic, which I also did a rotation in. But the pediatric clinic was also scary at different times. But a lot of the things when I say they were scary, for me, they were scary because of the medical fragility of some of our patients. Because I was doing an acute care rotation. So these were people that were either really sick still or coming out of being really sick. And so that was scary.
Who were the people who were like your direct supervisors in those situations? What we do
our fieldwork experiences literally look like you go and you team up with, at least they're supposed to, you go and you team up with an active working clinician.
Okay. So does it need to be a CODA?
It doesn't have to be. It can be an OT.
Okay.
An OT can supervise an OTA student.
Okay.
An OTA cannot supervise a level 2 OT student.
Gotcha.
But it can be an OT or an OTA. Both of mine were OTAs.
Okay.
And you notice I say OTA instead of CODA because one of my supervisors was not a CODA.
Okay.
She was an OTA. She did not keep her certification. She did not keep her national certification.
Right.
And in the state of Alabama, that's not required.
Right.
So the more inclusive language is OTA, just because, I mean, I have personal experience with working clinicians, and I'll tell you, that lady, her name is Mary, and Mary was a boss. Like, she was a hard, she was a very, like, no-nonsense, like, very kind of, like, cut and dry veteran. She'd been an OTA for 20 plus years, I think close to 30 years.
Yeah.
She'd done OT in a lot of different settings. The people around her in the hospital had a lot of, she was very much a force that like walked around the building. Like people, a lot of people didn't like her, I think.
A lot of people don't like forces.
Right. And like a lot of people didn't like her because she was just kind of very cut and dry. She didn't like sugarcoat things. She wasn't, I don't want to say she wasn't the most personable, but like she wasn't the person that you're just going to walk up to and just, start dancing with.
Like if you had like a bad night, you wouldn't like walk in and like tell her all about your rough night, would you? She that type of like not personable?
I mean,
we're like really getting into this person's life, but
if I have a lot of respect for Mary, and Mary is I came to know Mary as a very competent, very experienced, and she was, I don't care what anybody says, Mary may have been she wasn't super kind all the time to like clinicians, because I think she held them to a standard. Like I think she held them to a high standard, which she also held herself to.
Right.
And I respect that of like, I expect you people, like I expect other people around that are doing the same thing that I'm doing to work at a level that is more than just doing the bare minimum, and just getting by.
I feel like me and Mary get along.
I think you guys probably would, honestly. And Mary was she was always very nice to me. There were times and she gave me some tough love at different times. She always gave me great feedback, sometimes feedback that I was not ready for, but like she always gave me great feedback. And people can say whatever they want to about her, and people like her, but under it all, she cared more about her patients than like a lot of other people that I've met. And so everything that she did, she was stern and she was kind of like straight laced and very kind of tough. But it was because she was like, this is what's best for my clients. And like, these are the practices. These are the things that you need to learn to best do.
Which is very important in a medical setting anyway.
Yeah, it was great. It was hard. And I know that like the girl because Mary supervised to like me and one of my classmates, not at the same time, but kind of back to back. And I know that the girl that was with her before I had a really hard time. And we talked on the phone before I went in to work with Mary. And I know she had a tougher time just with the personality differences. But that's something that that's something to kind of be aware of going into field work, is that like your clinicians, your clinical educators may have a different perspective, or they may have a different personality type, or they may have a different kind of communication methods and stuff.
That's a great point.
And it's because my clinical instructors, or CIs is what we call them, they were very different. So I had Mary in the hospital who was very like, I say tough because she expected you to know a lot. She expected you to be like on your game, which made me a better clinician. And then my other CI is actually one of our coworkers now. And she had a very different approach.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Courtney. Since I'm named Mary, I'll name Courtney. But Courtney was always very like gentle, and she's a very like sweet person. Not that Mary's not sweet. I don't want it to sound like I'm poo-pooing on Mary. Mary's great.
Courtney's very fun. She's very like child friendly. Like,
yeah, you can tell Courtney works with children, and has a very like child friendly personality type. And that was reflected in her kind of supervision style.
Yeah.
It's very like gentle and it's just not as forward.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. We love Courtney.
Yeah. Love. I
feel like I would love Mary too, but
yeah.
I know Courtney, so love her.
Yeah.
Shout out to her for teaching some of our favorites.
Right. And that's one thing that I think is interesting. It was kind of cool about the program is, and I'm grateful for, because I got to see two very different settings and two very different clinical instructors and their styles. Yeah. So that was really advantageous, because now I have learned things from both of them. And like I take things that I learned from them into how I supervise students.
Yeah.
Because now I'm a practicing clinician, and so I have been people's clinical instructors. And so, yeah, that's one thing that was really cool.
Yeah. I think that's a great point of like, it's important if you are a student to take in consideration that you are going to have personality differences with the people who are your direct supervisors at that time, or your professors. Yeah. But take it as a learning experience.
Yeah. And one thing too is, this is one thing that it's actually one of the things that me and Mary talked about as, I'm just talking about Mary. This is a whole podcast about Mary. But she really has like influenced my whole life. Truly. She will never know how much she has like touched my life, really. But one of the things that we chatted about is something that I do now as a clinical instructor, is I try to be very clear with my expectations. I don't always get it right, but I try to be very clear about my expectations, because I felt like Mary wasn't always super clear, and like I wasn't always sure about like, is this going to be my patient? Am I going to be expected to take the lead on this one? Am I going to be expected to do this thing, or, the documentation, or whatever it was. Wasn't always super clear. And so that kind of made me feel a little like not on even ground. So that has taught me now as a clinical instructor that like, I try to be very clear with my expectations with my students. Like, this is what this is what the day is going to look like, as best as I possibly can make it happen. Sometimes there are things that are out of my control this is a different conversation, but this is like, I will try to set the expectation for you so you are prepared, so that you can be prepared. But my advice for students would be, if you are going into your clinicals, your field work rotation, or whatever it is, you are allowed to have conversations with your clinical instructor. You are, and I encourage you to. Please have a discussion about like, if they're not setting their expectations, ask them, what are your expectations? What are you expecting of me? What do I need to be prepared to give? When do I need to be prepared to step away? Because sometimes students are super eager and they step in too much, and it's like, you really don't know what you're doing. In this situation, it requires more delicacy and requires a higher level of skill than you have right now. So this is a moment when I need you to watch.
Yeah.
I need you to observe what I'm doing and see how to handle the situation. And so like, but those are conversations that need to be had.
Yeah.
Early. Have those conversations early on and frequently.
And throughout, if you have concerns. I think that's a good point, because like I did say, when we talked about like, if you have different personalities, like that's okay. You need to take this learning experience. But at the exact same time, if you're a student, you need to be prepared to advocate for yourself if needed.
Yeah. And like, let them know how you work best.
Yeah.
Like for Magnolia, sounds like you are a very hands-on person.
Yeah.
So you want a lot of hands-on opportunities. So then let people know that. If you want that, then do it. Then like, let them know so that you can get as much hands-on learning when it is safe to do so.
Right.
But if I really love watching. I gain a lot of knowledge from observing. And like, I really love watching people who are really good at what they do, do what they do. I love that. And so I love a lot of observation.
Yeah.
I want the hands-on, obviously, too. But
like start out with observation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't want you to give me someone that I've never seen before and just throw me in there and be like, figure it out. Mm-hmm. That's not what I don't want that. I want someone to be like, watch me do it and then you practice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like I want to see you do something similar and then so that it's just how my brain works. It's right. Like the see one, do one, teach one thing.
Yeah.
Very much fits me.
No, I'm like, let me at it and then you just teach me after.
Sure.
Which is fun. I mean, I will watch. I mean, trust me, if my supervisor was like, please watch me, I would totally do that. Yeah. But I'm also very much like, okay, I've got it. Let me try it. And then I'm very teachable after that. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Tell me all the corrections you want and then let's have it. But I do want, in my experience as a student, mostly more in grad school where I actually was treating, I want like a collaborative conversation as well, though. Like, instruct me, but like, I'm gonna ask questions. I'm very like inquisitive of like, so why? Like, why is that the case?
And I love that. And that's another piece of advice for students is because everybody just feels so scared.
They do.
Everyone's just so scared.
And they just go with the flow of school.
And I get it because I was also scared. Like, everyone's so terrified and they're so worried about messing up and they're so worried about making mistakes. And I'm like, this is the moment to make mistakes.
It is.
Because like we are here I am here. Mm-hmm. You're not going to do anything that's going to be like completely the worst, most terrible thing because I will stop you if you do. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, this is the moment. This is the moment to like try new things and just be open to exploration.
Yes.
And open to like
instruction and asking questions.
Very much that.
That's what gets me a lot of times when I do hear, like I've never had my own student, but I do overhear people talk about their experiences in school. And it's just like, oh, I didn't get a good experience or I didn't get this or I wasn't given this. And I'm like, you've got to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you could have bad factors happen during your schooling, but you're going to have to make the best of it. Yeah. Like you're going to have to put yourself in the places to get the experiences, whether you have to fight for them or advocate for yourself for them. If you feel like you don't have a good supervisor, you're going to have to talk to them or talk to your, whoever's your supervisor, like coordinator.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to ask questions. Like you don't want to end your time as a student starting your job being like, I wish I would have known better.
Yeah.
And you can't blame it on your past. Like,
yeah,
that was your time to learn. That was your time to mess up, like you said. Use that time wisely so that you can be a better clinician in the future.
Right.
It's like very, very important.
You kind of get as much out of it as you put in it.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Yeah.
That being said, if you do have like a bad instructor,
it happens.
Please don't go home crying every day and not let somebody know.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, please don't do that. Please. Like, have enough like love for yourself that you aren't just completely miserable. Right. Because there are some, I will go ahead and this is my PSA warning. Okay. I keep saying like supposed to, and this is what's meant to happen because for our fieldwork experiences, it's meant to be this like very close supervision, very collaborative, very much like you are paired with one person, maybe two or like potentially two. Maybe three. I don't know. I've never heard of three.
According to like schedule changes and stuff like that.
Somebody, you may have two supervisors because they don't work full time or whatever. And you have to split your days in the week. But that's fine. You're still paired with a person. Your person cannot be going and seeing other people. It is illegal. As far as I know, nationally, it is illegal for them to go work with another patient while you are working with this patient. And you are not in nursing homes and stuff where they have group therapy sessions and they have concurrent sessions. That may be a little different, but generally they cannot go do other things while you are working with a patient.
Yeah.
Like it is their responsibility. They are liable for what happens with this client. So if you feel like you are put, especially, please listen to me so closely, especially if you feel like you are put in an unsafe situation where you or your client is at risk of harm, do not tolerate that.
Right.
You cannot. you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the patient
Mm-hmm.
to speak up about it. Either have a direct conversation with your supervisor about like, hey, I felt really unsafe here. I really don't feel like that's good for us to do again. If that doesn't work, go to your fieldwork coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's something that you actually have to report to their boss.
Yeah.
Like there are circumstances
Mm-hmm.
when it's totally appropriate to be like, absolutely not. One of my classmates had a horrible experience where one of her rotations, we have like 1 week rotations, or at least we did. One of her rotations, she was sent off with a CNA who we love the CNAs. They do not get enough love. National CNA Day. Don't know when it is, but they're amazing. She was sent off with a CNA who was doing sponge baths all day long, which is not the role of an OTA. So her clinical, that was a wasted field work because she did not see therapy done. She did not see like what an OTA does. She worked with the CNA for like 5 of the 8 hours that she was there a day doing sponge baths, which is great work. And thank you to CNAs for doing it. That is not me putting down CNAs for doing sponge baths, but it's not that's not what she was there to do. Her job was to go see therapy done. And that's not what happened. And those situations are not cool.
Yeah.
That's not okay. That's not cool. You may face those situations. So be prepared to like advocate for yourself and be like, this is my learning. I'm paying for this. Like, this is not your gift to me. I am paying for this experience.
And like, don't put your patient at risk.
Absolutely.
For that. And it's not your patient. Like, you need to point that out as well. This is not your patient.
Yeah. I've had people who have like talked about how they have gone in and done showers with patients who were high risk, like high fall risk patients, and they had no clue where their clinical instructor was. Oh, gosh. And I'm like, that's completely not okay.
That is so scary.
There's so many situations in which your client could like suddenly decompensate. Maybe their blood pressure drops really low. They may pass out. Like, they could fall on the slippery surface. Hey, Ajax, they leave the little thing alone. Sorry. Ajax is attacking my plants. But there are so many reasons why that's a very dangerous situation to not have someone who is trained and practiced and experienced there close at hand. Yeah. Because it's not like they were in the other room, like to give you guys a little bit more privacy. They were like gone. They were nowhere to be seen. Absolutely. And like, that's not okay.
No.
It is not okay. Like,
and please remember, like, most students have like liability insurance through their schooling.
Yeah.
So like, you're normally okay, but like, it's also not your job to be in charge of them.
No. So
like, you need to make sure you're protected.
Yeah.
And not left alone to where no one could blame you for any of those instances.
No.
Yeah.
Very much.
But
I didn't have those experiences, thankfully, but I have heard from so many other people who did have those kinds of terrible experiences.
Yeah.
And it's like, you do not have to endure that.
Right.
You don't. You shouldn't.
But it can be scary, I'm sure, because I have had one supervisor who I did not speak up to. I just kind of pushed through it because I had other good experiences going on at the same time. And I was like, I can handle this. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that was in grad school, of course, which I feel like my grad school practicum experiences are much more like y'all's experiences because you're actually doing field work.
Yeah.
Our word's practicum, y'all's word is
a clinical degree.
Yeah.
Like, your undergrad degree is not a clinical degree.
No, it wasn't.
It's just a
Bachelor of Science. Yeah.
Ours is, it's in, I think mine's in AAS, Associates of Applied Science.
Yeah.
It's a clinical degree.
Yeah. So like, in my master's degree, when I finally got like that one-on-one, like going to practicums and stuff, which was fun. Like, I loved clinic, loved practicum in grad school. It met all my expectations.
Great. I love that.
So, I mean, you have to get tons of hours.
Yeah.
I won't bore anybody with that. So,
yeah.
But I love it. Got tons of hours, way over the bare minimum again in this scenario. But I had a child rotation and would do clinic on campus as well during that time. But I did have a supervisor who would just kind of be like, I would show up before her. I would get her files and start the day. And she would tell me which patients I could see and which ones I couldn't see. Which ones were her patients and which ones I would see for her. And then I just would not see her the rest of the day. To the point of like would not let me in her sessions sometimes.
Oh, I see.
And so it was just kind of like there was no instruction.
Yeah.
There. There was no like initial meeting. And like my university like required that. Like that was like supposed to be documented. Like an initial meeting, a midterm meeting, and a final meeting. Like were the bare minimum. And it still didn't happen to me. So like my midterm was literally just like handed me the paperwork that she had already filled out.
Oh, I see.
With no explanation.
Yeah.
And that one really did get to me because I was like, I am someone who is teachable. I am someone who takes like criticism pretty well. Like I want to have a conversation about it, but I'll take it. Like I would love to learn better, but I got like none of it. And like I will never forget that experience of, I will say, giving me a B and then telling me that in the final I'll give you an A because I just want to show progress. Like I will never forget that quote. Like it will stay in my head. Yeah. I think for the rest of my life.
For sure.
So like don't let yourself get in that experience either where it's like the supervisor's doing the bare minimum.
Sure.
And you're treating a caseload. Like I don't know if I was ready to treat a caseload. It was in a pediatric setting. So technically it was the same work like an SLPA would do. And unfortunately it was the same type of work I was doing because I was an SLPA while in grad school. So I was prepped for it, but I needed a better learning experience at the same time. Because as an SLPA, you don't get a lot of teaching. Yeah. So I'd have loved more teaching in that experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I keep telling that made me think of that example. But for grad school for like speech people, you do have to do your hours have to be spread out like y'all. So you have to have the adults, the pediatrics, all of that. I definitely tried to balance way too much in grad school. I worked as an SLPA during the day and then my classes were at night. And then I would choose days for like my clinical days whenever it came time for it that I would work. So keep that in mind when choosing all of that as well, because that was way too much of a struggle. I would say working all day and then going to take like a test at night was a struggle. Studying on my way there was probably not safe. Because it was an hour drive in between the places. But I loved clinicals on campus in grad school. I had an excellent clinical supervisor. Me and her are still really close. I contact her all the time still. And she was just so good. Once again, one-way mirrors in these situations. I started out with like pediatric patients in the clinic. I had like 2 that I kept with me. It was still very intense. Like I had to like have everything prepped and ready to like show her like what my plan for the sessions were, my outlines and like what I hoped to do in each session, taking data so she could review it. It was very hands-on supervision. But she would listen into the sessions and then we would talk immediately after. And she was so great because if she got pulled away for anything else, she was taking notes during my session. So she would hand me the paper for me to review my notes until we could meet. Like she never forgot about me. Or never left me to be like, I wonder how I did. So she never put me in that mental space. So I'm really thankful for her. And she did correct me all the time in like such good ways of like, hey, you could try this next time. Or, hey, that doesn't seem as important. Like, why are we focusing on that? So I'm very thankful for her. And because we built up such a good relationship, my grad school, once again, was kind of the environment where if you work for more, you can get more. So she started giving me adult patients earlier in the clinic, like the on-campus clinic. So I started with observing older grad students, like the ones who are a year ahead of me, with their adult patients, with the thought process of I would be taking them on next. Because they were very careful at that clinic with like what student was with the adult patient because they wanted to keep like continuity with the adult patients. And so they would have someone trained and ready for them. So it was kind of a unique experience for me because I got to start observing those sessions early on, kind of meet those adult patients, and then being prepared for the next semester, they would be my patients. So I really enjoyed that too, because I kind of got that component that you were talking about, observing, learning, which was really good for me because I wasn't ready for adults yet, because I had no experience with adults. So I was really appreciative for that. Then the thing happened that I don't think any of us were ready for or had any expectations for was COVID shutting all of us down. after my first year at grad school. So we still had to get clinical hours. Obviously, we also didn't want to just like lose our patient care. Like our patients just stopped getting care. But we physically could not be on campus anymore. Like that was just not allowed. So another unique experience was I got to keep all of my adult patients. I had 4 at the time because they just got added up. And they couldn't be spread out to anyone because we never had that chance for observation and continuity of care and all that. So they just stayed mine. And I had them for 2 semesters on teletherapy. Oh, so they were my first little teletherapy patients. We had the best time because like I already knew them. So to me, it almost just felt like I had my own caseload, like as a grad student. But me and my supervisor had a really good relationship. So she would get on there in the Zoom meetings. She would watch, she would talk with them before and after and kind of instruct me. So I did enjoy that time as well. So that was a huge unexpected event happen that we had to push through. So like it's hard for me to like relate my grad school experience to a lot of the ones now, like the students who are in grad school now, because like it's kind of back to normal a little bit. You can still get your placements and stuff. But after doing the teletherapy, when the world kind of started opening back up again, we had to like fight to find our own medical placements, unfortunately, because I was in year 2. It was time for me to do a medical placement.
Yeah.
No one was taking students. So it was pretty much just you only got a medical placement if you could find one, was kind of just the scenario because they only could get a few in our small area. I got really lucky and got one at a clinic that had just opened up. And she very quickly filled out the paperwork to take on a student. And I started working with her, and she was an absolutely amazing supervisor. Well, her name is Sarah Beth. I should have told the other person name. My awesome other supervisor was Miss Horn. She was amazing. But Sarah Beth was excellent supervisor. She was that type of person who's like, I want you to read everything about this patient, every note and detail about their history. She really taught me how to like learn about patient history and like read reports from the doctor so that I was ready for initial evaluations for adults. So I was really lucky to have that experience. And she did a lot of like fees and things like that. So I got to be very hands-on with her. And I've never seen someone, I think, so gracefully work with a student, giving me like the balance of like independence, but also supervision. So like she would be there for me. And then like by like session 4 with a patient, she would start just like randomly kind of leaving the room occasionally, but she was always there, like always there. And that was really helpful for me because I got to kind of experiment with doing like swallowing exercises and stuff with patients with the confidence that like she's there if I need her, but also like not having that fear of like being more stiff. Because it was hard for me to like get to know patients, I think, and be more free with a supervisor there, which is just my personality.
Yeah.
Like I'm very a stiff procedural person, but I can get relaxed and be fun with a patient.
Yeah.
But it's hard for me to do if a third party's like watching.
I think a lot of people feel that way. I
think
it's a common thing that I hear about. I hear from students. I mean, and that was similar. Like, you always. It's something about just having a presence, having another person's presence in there with you who you feel to be a person of authority, whatever, that it does alter your communications with people.
It does.
You know?
It makes, I mean, and you're students, you're focused on making the perfect session.
Yeah.
Quotes here.
Which is unfortunate. Like, don't try to make everything perfect, students. You're going to fail. You're just setting yourself up for failure because you're not perfect and none of us are.
Right.
But you don't know that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, like you do know that. You're hyper aware of the fact that you're not perfect. And so you try to overcompensate and it just makes your life harder.
Yeah. And I'm very thankful for her because she was able to work that balance out. Because in other ways, it would have been really awkward because I really needed to get to know my patients because we were doing some really uncomfortable things. Like, for example, one of the exercises for swallowing was kind of like water hold exercises. So like they would literally hold water in their mouth for like a certain time frame. And I would have a timer going. And so like, that's a really awkward time just to be like, you hold water in your mouth and I'm going to sit here and watch you. Yeah. So it really became helpful that she gave me the space to like get to know the patient so that like I could carry out a conversation or tell them stuff while they held water in their mouth to make it like less weird. Some of our patients, we'd even write back and forth like on a marker board and like play some games and stuff to make it less weird. But I wouldn't have had that experience if she wouldn't have been like, yeah, here, take it a little bit. Yeah. Give me some space. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act.
Yeah.
As someone who has supervised students, I've had several at this point, and it is definitely a balancing act because as we have talked about already, I'm very much a proponent of you as the instructor need to be an active participant in everything that's happening. Like so some people, there's this, okay, our rotations work in OTA school. In our OTA programs, OTA schools typically have 8-week rotations, which are the big ones. They're not like yours where you do like random hours here and there.
Yeah.
Ours are it's like you do them in a row. Yeah. They don't have to be built that way, but that's typically how people do them.
They're more structured and laid out.
Yeah, because ours are counted by weeks, not by hours. Weeks of full-time work. And so the weeks don't have to be split that way, but oftentimes they are, at least that I know of. And so like, for instance, my OT program is 8 weeks. My OT program is going to be 12 or 13. Either way, it's a lot. And some people have the perception that a student should be fully independent, working on their own by the halfway mark. I think that's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard, because how do you expect somebody to learn to be a fully fledged working clinician in 4 weeks?
Yeah.
That's insane.
And if you've heard our OT or speech month like episodes, like like the width and breadth of like what OT and speech do. Like
it is massive.
Not every clinician is even well versed in every single thing we do.
I mean, like, you don't send me up. I'm not a super well versed clinician in the world of like neuro rehab.
Right.
You know?
We're not just going to be like, oh, you've been here for 2 weeks. You got it.
You like go to
Congratulations, you're an expert.
I'm a licensed, practicing, board certified, active, experienced clinician with 4 years of experience behind me. And I would want mentorship if I walked into a like acute neuro rehab.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, are you kidding? So it's wild to me that clinical instructors just have this notion that's like, oh, this person, here they come. Like, okay, now you have to be completely on your own by week 4. I'm like, that just doesn't make sense.
No.
Think about what you're saying, because it just doesn't make sense. So my students, and maybe they don't love this, but I am actively involved until the very end. Until the very end. Like, you may not see every single one of the patients, even in your last week, because they're either super complex or you are still working on other things. Maybe you're researching for this other client who's super complex, or maybe you're catching up on documentation from these clients that were challenging or whatever. You know, I'm like, there are many reasons why I do not expect my students to be functioning as a graduated, certified, experienced clinician, because they're not.
And this is going to be a very controversial statement, but as like a supervisor, you are not training your student to be an employee of your company.
Love that.
You are training them to be a clinician.
Love that.
And that is like huge, because like I see that happen a lot where it's like, welcome to our clinic. You need to learn how to be everything our clinic does. Yeah. And that's just not true. No. They are here to see some patients. Yep. Let's give them some patients. Let's teach them how to be a clinician.
Never heard that, but I love that.
Because
it's true.
Well, that's how I get told it. I got told a lot in speech, like for speech school, I guess we can say, for grad school, of like, don't let someone put you of like, here's my caseload, do my job for the time. Because that's what happens a lot for grad students. Yes. They'll do a practicum rotation maybe, because not all schools are structured the same way my school is. Some do the 12-week structure, like y'all are talking, like you have, where it's like, okay, I'm going to go to the nursing home, and then the SLP is like, okay, here's my entire caseload. do my job for me. I'm going to do admin task.
Yeah.
Like, I've got to catch up on my own paperwork.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take care of all this other stuff.
It's like, no.
That's not
what you're there for.
That's not what you're there for. You're not there to clean. Like, you're not there to do all the things.
Yeah.
It's just a little side note.
There are people, like, for instance, I hear this when, like, I have students and people will be like, when it's time for my students to leave, they are flying the nest. They're going off and either going to their next rotation or they're graduating. And people will be like, well, what are you going to do now that you here you go. You got to get back into working because they've been doing your job for you this whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have been busy this entire time. I'm like observing, I'm making notes, we're having conversations. Like, what? That's not this relationship.
Another controversial statement. Your supervisor should not be reading a book in the corner or doing a Sudoku puzzle or playing on their phone while you are treating a patient. No. Just another little.
They need to be an active participant.
Little side note.
Obviously, I'm jaded. Obviously. I had really great instructors, and I am very thankful for my clinical instructors. Mm-hmm. And I followed their examples a lot, and I've taken things from both of them. And I hope that my students really gain a lot from their because it's also not lost on me the responsibility that we have as instructors, because I'm like, I don't want to send Mary Lou Johnson, if your name is Mary Lou Johnson, I'm so sorry. But I don't want to send out some person who I don't feel is like ready or competent, or I didn't support them enough. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
Because also I've heard people who have been clinical instructors complain about their students all the way through and then send them off on their way. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but did you actually take the time to like
correct?
Actually have meaningful conversations? Some of them do. I know people who have had just really hard experiences with students, and they have tried over and over and over again to help to correct the student, and it's just not sticking. Mm-hmm. But then there have been other people who they just complain the entire time. And I'm like, but if you haven't actually sat down and had those hard conversations like what you're talking about, what you mentioned earlier, that's part of your duty to the student, is to like have those hard conversations and bring their awareness to these things that they're having a hard time with, that they're struggling with. For instance, this is one of the greatest pieces of advice that I was ever given, and it was from Mary, and it really broke my soul. Okay. Like, it hurt my feelings, but I have shared the story with every student that I've ever supervised, and even students that weren't my students, like students or other people that have come through. I almost always share the story because it meant a lot to me. Mm-hmm. And okay, so one time we were working with a patient in the hospital. We were working on dressing, and we were trying to get, I think we were trying to get their socks and shoes on, and, that's what we were doing. We were working on dressing. And I went back through, and in the process of me helping this client, I adjusted their sock or something. I don't remember. It was something very small. Mm-hmm. And Mary was watching the whole time. She was observing everything and, doing the whole thing. And when I went to document it, I documented how they did lower body dressing independently. And Mary came back after she was reading over my note. She was like, okay, walk me through what happened with this client. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, they did this, blah, blah, blah. This is what I did, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, so I thought I saw you adjust their sock. I was like, I did. I don't think they needed me to, but I did it just to be helpful. And she was like, okay, but you did do it. Mm-hmm. You did assist them. That is helping. You assisted. So you cannot say that they are independent in this task because you did not allow them to be independent in that moment. If you feel like they could do it independently, then let them. Mm-hmm. Because now you stood in the way of their independence. Mm-hmm. And that crushed my entire soul in the moment. I was like, well, dang, Mary, like, and I did not respond. I did not say, dang, Mary.
I'm glad.
Like, in my, like,
you may not be with us today.
I was like, no,
no, I'm just kidding. I mean, like, you would, I don't know.
Oh, me, I wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be here with us today.
Truly, like, it really affected me. And I'm like, okay, that like changed. But it takes those kinds of like really that was a hard conversation, and it was a hard piece of criticism, but it was so beneficial. And like, I have taken it with me to make sure that I am not standing in the way of my clients' independence. And there have been times since then that I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have helped that. Like, that was, I am at fault for like providing too much assistance here. But it's good to have those levels of awareness, and that's what your instructor is supposed to do. It's supposed to have those hard conversations and to guide you in these ways to make sure that you are being as productive and as effective as you can be. And
supervisors being busy is not a good excuse, because like I was saying, like with my professor, Miss Horn, my clinical instructor at the campus, like she always took the time to like, did not have time to meet with you right after the session, but like, here's my notes. Let's schedule a meeting to discuss it. Like, that's not a good reason.
And let me give this also. So we've been talking a lot about like students advocating for themselves and instructors being sure to support the students, right? But also, this is something that can happen, and I have heard of it happening, and I have seen it happen on occasion. For the clinical instructor, if you have a student that does not give your job permission to give you added duties because you have someone taking over your caseload.
That's so true.
So do not let your employer, your boss, your job, wherever you work, bully you into doing other tasks.
Because you have a student.
Because you have a student to do your job for you. That is absolutely not acceptable.
Right.
Because your job is to instruct that person. Your job is to support that person. Your job is to make sure that your patients are safe.
Yeah.
And right now they're in the hands of a student.
I was going to say, because whose name is going to be on that document?
Mine. The instructors.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
So
also know what your own, anyway, that's just another little thing. Know what your own like responsibilities are.
Yeah.
And don't let other people kind of pressure you into doing things that are not appropriate.
Right.
Because I do know of people being given extra tasks. Just like, well, so-and-so is with your patient right now. It's like, yeah, but they're my patient. They are my responsibility. They and the student is my responsibility. So like, I need to be available for them. So yeah, being a student is a lot of fun. I didn't even talk about being a grad student. But
another time.
Another time, it's fine. Maybe when I go to field work.
Yeah. Well, we gave some tips that we weren't really expecting to give, but it makes sense to give them. I hope our stories have helped someone.
Yeah.
It felt good to rant about them a little bit.
I did. I feel like I ranted some.
It feels like a long, long time ago. It really wasn't that long ago.
No.
Kind of. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. I graduated grad school in 2021.
Yep.
So that was kind of a long time ago.
3 years ago.
Okay. 3 years makes me feel less.
Literally,
less weird.
I got Facebook memories from your graduation party.
Oh, how sweet.
How fun.
Guys, I invited him to my graduation party.
And I showed up.
Sweet.
You know who else from work came? No one.
Yeah, because I had quit.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I forgot.
The drama.
I forgot you went somewhere else.
Yeah, I quit, but Jonathan tried to stay my friend while I wasn't working with him.
Sort of, kind of. I was there. It was fun. But yeah, so being a student is fun. I don't even know what I don't know how to wrap this up.
What was the point of this?
I don't know. I feel like
so you've heard our stories. Maybe some people who are students can have some advice from that. If you work in a place that has students, please take some of this advice to help the students out.
Yeah.
Point out things if you notice people not doing the right thing. Help advocate for the students.
For real. And try to give constructive criticism. Don't just be bullying your students just because you're their authority figure.
Yeah.
Don't be mean to a student just because they're a student and they should know better. They literally shouldn't because they're a student. And
then if you have any experiences you want to talk about, on here, on our comment section, or send us a message about your school experience, feel free.
Yeah. At the.coachry on Instagram. Yeah. I've also been told to ask, what was it? Our friend Sydney, shout out to Sydney. She's been telling me to tell people to something about making a review.
Oh, leave a review.
Leave a review.
Maybe not on this one since we don't know what we're saying.
Okay, it's okay. Leave us a review.
Okay. Do you have, this is going to be a throwback. Do you have any like therapy wins you remember from school?
Okay. I have a therapy win that's not mine. It's Mary's. It was one of the coolest things she ever did.
Go for it.
It was amazing. It blew my mind. I think I've talked about the patient that I had before that like will always stick with me, that was post-COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Very limited mobility. Like literally when we went to see her, the first time we saw her, she could move her like pointer finger on her right hand. That was the only movement she had in her body.
Yeah.
Because she was just so weak. Okay. Fast forward a little bit. A couple weeks later, we were in a regular hospital room. She did not have access to her call light because she couldn't, initially, she couldn't move at all to like hit a button. But so her safety was severely impaired because she could not hit her button. And by that time, she could move her arm kind of up and down, but she could not move her fingers. She didn't have a grasp. She couldn't hold on to things. So she still did not have access to her call button. Mm-hmm. So what Mary did was Mary made a little contraption. She got a tongue depressor and a toothpaste cap. And if you're familiar with the call lights in hospitals, they're like long, flat looking, sometimes they look kind of like a flattened out pear type shape, kind of that kind of thing. And she attached these call lights, there's a big red button at the top, like kind of in the middle of the circle that you hit. It was very noticeable. So she she taped the bottle cap onto the call light, like onto the button. And then she got the popsicle stick and attached it at the end, like the top end of the call button.
Yeah.
And then had it rest on the on the bottle cap, the toothpaste cap. So there's a toothpaste cap on the call button.
Got it.
And then there's a popsicle stick or a tongue depressor like at an angle above it.
Okay.
Anchored kind of at the top. So it became a hinge.
Okay.
So literally all our patient had to do to use her call button was lift her arm and hit the popsicle stick and it pressed her call light.
Wow.
So that suddenly she could call for assistance for whatever she needed.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That is awesome.
It was the coolest thing, the coolest feat of engineering. I was like, this is genius.
Wow. And
it was just literally she made it out of supplies that you could be found in any hospital room.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That's so cool.
Amazing. And it gave that client so much more independence and peace of mind because suddenly she could call for help when she needed something.
Wow.
It was awesome.
That is amazing.
It's great.
I love that.
It's Mary's therapy win.
Yeah. My therapy win, I had several with this woman in the on-campus clinic in grad school with my supervisor, Miss Horn, who was also amazing. Miss Horn, like, over and over taught me about, like, the functionality of, like, adult communication. Like, with aphasia patients, like, we're working on functional. Like, what's the point of working on anything else?
Yeah.
Which we love that. Yeah, so we did lots of fun things with this patient. I don't know if I've shared any of those stories on here. I know I've told you some, but like including how to get directions to go to her favorite places, which included things like the strip club, how to count her ones,
oh my gosh, I love
how to get to the tattoo parlor. Like those were her like big concerns. Like she was a retired woman who wanted those things.
Okay.
And so we're going to learn how to do all that. And so we like planned out the whole route, like how to get her Uber car, like, cause she didn't drive.
Yeah.
Her wife was working. And so we had like figure out everything for her to get that whole day complete.
Yeah.
Everything she wanted. So it took lots of sessions, but we got it all worked out. We practiced over and over again how to reserve the car, how to show them the directions of where she wanted to go. We had them saved and like favorited in her phone. We like pre-saved some talk to text, like, I don't know, presets and stuff for her iPad.
Yeah.
She used some kind of like speech generating devices. I don't even remember the names for it. Specifically made for like aphasia patients where we could like save some like words that we had practiced on. She could record her voice, touch the button, stuff like that, to where we could make it work. And yeah, she did her whole experience and
did you ever
came back. Yeah, it was successful. And everyone was just like super excited because like she was able to have the day she wanted. Yeah. And it was an independent day for her. Like, I don't know the details of what she did. I don't know what all she wanted to do, but all that really matters, she left her home on her own and she got home on her own and felt
That's so exciting. She
felt like she communicated effectively the whole day. So like that was my job, was make sure she could communicate what she wanted throughout the day.
Yeah.
So it took like a whole semester of practicing, getting everything ready, organizing it all. But it was really exciting.
I love that.
For her to have whatever day she wanted.
It makes me so excited.
And it just makes it just shows how you can make things functional.
Oh yeah.
In speech. And I know OT, are functional. We get it. And you get it. You don't have to keep bragging.
Everything should be about the patient.
But it should be about the patient.
Yeah.
Even if it makes you uncomfortable, because trust me, little grad school Magnolia was like, you want to do what?
You're trying to go where? Yeah.
So
love that.
But you do what you want to do for your patients. I mean,
we are here to support people in their own lives, not in a life that looks like ours.
Absolutely.
That's
a great statement. Yeah. And it was really rewarding because like, one, it was rewarding for the patient, but I think what was more rewarding for me was the conversation, because we talk with caregivers all the time, the conversation with her wife after the session, where she was happy and smiling, and like you saw some relief of like, I didn't have to stress about what she was doing.
Decreasing caregiver burden.
Because she's like, I got to go to work.
Yeah.
Like, I can't keep just coming home all the time for things.
I love that.
Because that was like a consistent thing. Even like, when we were online during COVID, another little quick win, we were able to teach her how to like get on a Zoom session. Not teach her. Help her, accommodate to her. She knew how to do that. She just needed the assistance to get on a Zoom session on her own for our teletherapy without having her wife come home from work to set it up for her, then go back to work. So that was another win.
I love that.
Anyway, that woman is amazing. They're both amazing.
Incredible. I love that win.
She had purple hair on top of that. So she was my favorite because I've had purple hair. So
yeah, Magnolia's favorite color is purple. That's why is our logo purple and
yellow?
Yellow? Because my favorite color is yellow. Magnolia's is purple.
Yeah, a little side note.
And honestly, I think purple and yellow are kind of great together.
Yeah.
I think it's a fun little combo.
They are.
It's nice.
Okay. Well, there's our wins. We had some great wins.
There's our wins.
Throwback wins.
Throwbacks. So if you want to get in touch with us, please comment, like, subscribe. Can you do that?
I don't know. Leave us a review and tell us how to be better.
As if we have a YouTube channel. Comment, like, subscribe. But yeah, leave us a review. Tell us what you think. You can comment on our Instagram. Please send us any suggestions. What are some things that you, some expectations you had about being a student that were maybe met or maybe not met? Mm-hmm. Do you have fun stories about your clinical experiences? Were there things that you thought were really awesome? Were there things that you thought were really awful? Tell us what you think. Tell us about it.
Absolutely.
One day I'll talk about my current school experience.
Yeah.
Student life.
We'll learn about you.
But yeah, we will see you guys.
See you next time.
The next one. Bye.
Bye.